Is it on?
I think it's on. I've forgotten how to do this a little bit.
Hello? Can you hear me now?
I can. Hello to
Sorry, I don't know if
whoever.
that was funny for anybody else, but that was
That's
funny
right.
for me.
Look, I found it. I found it mildly funny. Um, welcome to. I mean, are we still calling these Ace Marks the Spot? I'm not really sure. It's more just a touching base kind of conversation because it's been a while. I think it's been over a month. I think since we last chatted. Noops, how are
That
you on
sounds
the
about
other side
right.
of the world?
Everything's beautiful here in the United States. Our brilliant president continues to lead a thoughtful, well planned, and unbelievably executed response. Being the best country in the entire world with the best healthcare system. It really shows. We're handling this really beautifully. It's not as bad as everybody thinks it is. I mean, the poor guy gets up every day, and I am certainly not a supporter of his. Not that that matters, but I think that whether you support him or not, you can't feel terribly great about his performance in these daily conferences. I think at this point, everybody knows yesterday he advocated for injecting disinfectants, which has led to a number of incidents already. There was a guy who had to go to the emergency room because he tried to give himself an enema with bleach because Donald Trump said that would kill coronavirus. Um, Personally, where I am isn't too bad. The state of Pennsylvania, isn't getting as much uh, publicity necessarily as like the state of New York. I think everybody knows Andrew Cuomo, and he's been really fantastic. Tom Wolf, the governor of Pennsylvania, has been very good early on. He was locking stuff down, keeping people home. He was a big advocate of wearing masks early on, which was something that I think a lot of people discredited. So, for the most part, everything's pretty good here. Luckily, no one that I know, knock on wood, has been affected by it personally. We did have two family friends. There was a cruise liner that was stuck off California for about a week
Mm.
because a couple people had coronavirus. Two of our family friends were on that cruise liner. And actually made it home safe, didn't have any coronavirus or anything like that. And actually kind of had a nice time. They went out there, basically to spend the whole time on the boat, hanging out in their room, like watching movies and stuff. And
Mm.
that's really all that they did. They were lucky enough to somehow have a room on a boat with a balcony. So they were able to get
Well,
outside, and everything was comped, of course, once all that terrible stuff happened. And I think they ended up flying them from California to Georgia, so from the West Coast of the United States all the way to the East Coast, where they hung out in like a military complex for a week. But we're fairly well taken care of, apparently. And now they're home and happy and feeling good. So, besides that, no one personally, thank God, has been affected. And it seems like things are getting better. They're getting better at treating it. People are doing a good job of staying home. People are wearing masks, which is really important. Whether you think it's 100% effective or not, it does decrease the chances for everybody. And when you take that number down, it really is a math thing. Um, but
yeah.
in total, the country's doing a better job. Where I live is doing pretty good. So I'm optimistic about how it's going to go. But um, just to remind everybody, this is going to be long. There'll be a second wave of this, I think, at some point, and we'll see how it goes. But I was reading a lot of optimistic stuff about what's going on there and on your side of the world between you guys and New Zealand. You guys are doing a good job on the islands.
This is probably the one time where it's a real advantage to be just a long way away from everyone else. Um, I think, yeah, a lot of the stuff here, like that, they're edging towards that point of they've flattened the curve, and now it's a how do we start to open things? I mean, a couple of states yesterday opened beaches up for it was like for swimming and for something else, but like you couldn't like sunbake and like hang out in groups, and everyone just went there and hung out in groups, and they closed again. Like it's just kind of dealing with most of society who look at it and go, well, if nothing's happening, why can't we kind of start again? Which, look, it's not going to happen. It's going to be here for a while. We're going to be stuck with it. Um, things are going to slowly open. No one wants to be that country that opens up too quickly and has everything come back again. But yeah, look, that's where it's at over here. And look, New Zealand have done a similar thing. And look, if anything's going to start again, it's probably going to be travel between Australia and New Zealand over here. I think that's the bit we're just going to kind of keep to ourselves, like the distant cousins off on the other side of the world, and do our best to live through that. But yeah, if anyone listening has any comments or questions or anything about kind of what you've been up to, if you've learnt anything, if you haven't learnt anything, if you enjoyed the NFL draft the other day, if you didn't enjoy the NFL draft the other day, chuck them in the comments section, or if you have any questions, shoot them through. We were thinking of we're thinking of a question that we could, a prize that we could come up with, but we haven't thought quite yet what it might be. So we'll have a bit of
wait
a
for that till the end. Maybe we'll figure something out. We
Yeah.
did get a question about the draft. Keep it on the DL. Our buddy who's often in, I don't see him in here right now, was asking about what him and our good friend Gav should be doing right now as Packers fans as a result of the draft. Now, Steve, I don't know if you're a big NFL fan, but the Green Bay Packers have this quarterback. His name's Aaron Rodgers. He's pretty good. And he's certainly not on his way out. And what they decided to do actually was to trade all the way up from the second round to the first round to draft another quarterback, seemingly indicating that Mr. Rodgers is on his way out. Does that make any sense to you, or are you familiar with football and all that?
I feel that's not going to make Aaron particularly thrilled with where he sits and kind of the confidence that they have in him going forward. I must say, I do enjoy I do enjoy most of the reactions that I see on Twitter. It seems to be a combination of Green Bay and a little bit of Philadelphia. Would that be right from someone who has
we'll
no
get to
NFL
Philadelphia
team?
in a second, but I think for Green Bay specifically, I mean, looking at Aaron Rodgers' contract, it looks like they can get out of that kind of at the end of this year. The next couple of years aren't actually guaranteed. So I think this is a pretty big signal that they've had enough of Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. So I guess if you're a Green Bay fan, what I would suggest is something that I learned during my time from the process as a Sixers fan. Find another hobby. There's got to be something else to do in fall. Get into apple picking, pumpkin picking. Must be some other thing to do. I mean, it's probably cold enough in Wisconsin. Maybe get into hockey. There's got to be some hockey going on or something like that. Maybe pick another team. I mean, the Dolphins, they're on the way up. They have cool colors. They get that Tua guy. That's fun to say. But that would be my suggestion to Packers fans. Maybe more in the loss of Aaron Rodgers and do whatever you can to try to keep him. But personally, being very selfish, I actually want Aaron Rodgers to demand a trade to the Chicago Bears and then play out the rest of his career as a Chicago Bear, as Baron Rodgers, destroying Green Bay twice a year.
See, so NFL is that last sport that I probably haven't, NHL as well, but I don't have a team. I have no affiliation. So if there are any recommendations, do shoot them through. I've just never really kind of associated myself with a team. Do I pick, is it bandwagon to pick like Dolphins or someone? Like I want someone who's a little bit crap that isn't great, that then I can like move my way up. So like when I first started with NBA, when it first started to become a bit more televised over here in Australia, I became a Miami fan. But I was a Miami fan when it was Shaq and Wade. So then I had to kind of wade through all that crap, pardon the pun, to get to the big three. And then all of a sudden you spend like 4 years as a bandwagon supporter because, everyone's on the Miami train. But I need that team now in the NFL that is a little bit average. So then when I say that, like I took it up, that I'm not being a bandwagon supporter. So you're going to have to help me out
this.
here.
This is a fun exercise. So at the end of the day, I am to be horribly boring and sad and kind of robotic. I'm not a big fan when it comes to sports. I'm a Philadelphia 76ers fan. That is the only sports team that I feel irrational about, that I have deep hatred and excitement and happiness that literally changes my mental composition and the way I feel day to day. And I don't understand it. It makes no sense to me. So what I think really it comes down to is you're going to be cheering for laundry at the end of the day. So what colors do you like? Like, what are you looking for in a uniform? What are you thinking about there?
Look, maybe like a blue.
You like a blue?
Yeah. Blue or like a black.
So maybe you'd like to be a Carolina Panthers fan. Yeah, Christian McCaffrey, really good running back. They are a rebuilding team. Just got Matt Rule. He was a pretty smart college coach. The Panther itself is a pretty cool logo. Definitely won't be accused of being a bandwagon fan now that Tom Brady's on the Buccaneers. The Saints are always everyone's favorite team. Let's see, what else? Who else is black and blue here? The Lions are blue, but you don't want to be a Lions fan. Don't do that to yourself.
Well, I know enough not to follow Stafford. Is he Lions?
He is.
Lions quarterback?
He is.
Yeah.
He is.
that's a pass from me.
Let's see. If you like blue, you could be a Bills fan. Buffalo Bills. You got an alliteration. Um, the coach is pretty good. The defense is pretty good. Quarterback not so great. They are one of the more tortured franchises in the history of the league. So hard to be accused of being a bandwagon fan.
That sounds right up my alley.
That's pretty good. Let's see what else we got. Blue, blue, blue. You could be a Cowboys or a New York Giants fan.
Yeah, no, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, those are kind of tough. I actually have some friends that are Giants fans, and they're actually kind of nice people. Which is, I know I'm going to get some hate from my Philadelphia friends, but they're just more comfortable. They lack the desperation. Now,
most days of the week, they're nice.
Now, the other two teams that I like that are blue would be the Chargers or the Rams. I think the Chargers actually have probably the best jerseys. It's a cool name. It's the Chargers. They're the other LA team, so you never get accused of being a bandwagon fan because you've already picked the second team in the city. And they could be sneaky good. I don't know. They have a lot of talent, and just basically everybody gets hurt every year. So they'll be excited, a lot of optimism at the beginning of the year, and then 3 games into the season, half of your starters will be injured for the rest of the year, and you can kind of deal with that.
Yeah, that sounds like something I could be about.
All right, so okay. we got the Chargers and we got the Bills. I think were your 2 favorites as we went through that.
We can put that to a poll later. I'm not going to get into hockey. I went to an NHL game. It was New York versus.
That's one of my favorite sports to go to live. I love the way that looks. I love the way it sounds, and I don't think it translates as well to TV as a lot of other sports.
Yeah, I went to New York versus New York in New York, and that was really something. That's probably the best way I can word it. I feel like the Rangers won, but the
Rangers probably did win. The Islanders haven't been very good for a while.
That would have been like five years ago.
Yeah.
Different crowd, probably different to the Australian sporting crowd, but it was.
What was different about it? Like, were they loud? Were they nasty? Like,
it was probably slightly towards nasty, but like because I wasn't affiliated with any team, so like I was just there to watch. But then like if you're just there to watch and you don't have anything like supporting either team, then you just kind of like looked at as the other person.
Right.
So it was like it was a good atmosphere. It was just different. But like
hockey fans are some of my favorite fans. They seem to be the smartest, like average fans when it comes to their sports. They're really big fans of their teams. So I can understand like you not picking a side, making everyone uncomfortable.
But like having said that, the day before, a couple of days before, I'd done like the Knicks versus the Heat when that was LeBron in Miami. So having just done that, but then again, I was wearing a Miami jersey in Madison Square Garden, which also wasn't probably the smartest move.
Idea.
Felt a little bit better there than I did when I wore a LeBron jersey to the Golden State match.
It's a
Golden
game.
State.
We play games.
I know it was.
There are no matches.
Sorry, game.
You use matches to light cigarettes.
That was the game that LeBron hit the 3 on the buzzer to win.
That was a great game. You were there for that?
Yeah, I was there for that. I was like 20 rows behind that basket.
That's awesome.
So I was there for that, but then
So you didn't even see it. You just saw the backboard.
Yeah, pretty much.
That sucks.
But then he started celebrating, so
Well, you were there, which is fun. But it's when you said that, and for those of you that ever go to a basketball game, try not to sit behind the basket because, especially right where you were, like 20 rows behind, like you're probably like, oh, I'm 20 rows off the court. Like this is real cool. And then you got there and you're like, oh, there's the stanchion.
Yeah, and this was like before the Warriors were good. So like they were getting there. Like they had Curry and they had Thompson.
Right.
Like they were kind of edging in that direction, but. It was weird because like the crowd spent the whole time just like booing the life out of LeBron. And then he hit the 3 on the buzzer and then it was like they were all, yeah, well done. Like that's LeBron. But then also like once you leave it and walk over to the, to catch the transport back to San Fran, I just thought I'd maybe chuck the jacket back on over the LeBron jersey.
Not the worst idea.
Yeah,
It's
no, I think
interesting. LeBron specifically, I'm always curious about. So I don't know if you've been watching the Michael Jordan documentary. They started last week. There'll be another two
yep.
episodes of it tonight, or I guess today, where you are, or whatever. Um, but LeBron, his entire career, like people, you're right, people booed him. Like I don't ever remember a superstar of his caliber kind of getting booed like that,
Mm,
without some sort of subtext. Like Kobe got booed, but that was after he cheated on his wife. He got booed in Philadelphia from time to time because he always talked shit on Philly basically every time he got a chance to.
yeah.
Um, but like LeBron, I don't know what he's done to deserve that kind of treatment. Um,
It's outside of the decision
right,
TV
exactly, right,
special.
exactly. Outside of that, right, outside of doing that, and but it's bizarre. It's bizarre to me. And again, we're watching all this Michael Jordan stuff, and uh, I mean, he's talked about like a deity almost. It's this rarefied air that he lives in,
Mm,
and not that I disagree with that, but I don't. At some point, I need to spend some time, and I have spent, but I haven't figured it out yet. Like why we look at Michael Jordan one way, we look at LeBron James this other way. It's very
yeah.
interesting.
So I've never been able to get into the whole debate around like LeBron versus Jordan versus Kobe versus whoever else you want to put in that kind of echelon at the top, because I wasn't old enough to have an appreciation of Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
So like when Jordan was at his best, I don't even think that NBA was kind of brought into the Australian market a lot. Like you heard about it like through the papers and like, but there's no social media, there's no instant kind of coverage that you get now. So like this documentary is kind of eye opening for me because I never saw, like I haven't seen any of this. So like when all these things that were happening at the moment, I was like 6.
Yeah, this is completely nostalgic for me because I'm trying to think when a lot of this stuff happens. I'm still young. I'm like 10, 11, maybe 12, but just old
Yeah.
enough to start to be able to remember and process some of it. Um, it's interesting. The discussion about the best player of all time in the NBA is so hard because the eras are so different. Like,
Mm,
how do you compare Bill Russell to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar to Shaquille O'Neal?
yep.
And even going further back to like guys like George Mikan. And as far as I'm concerned, Michael Jordan's the greatest basketball player of all time. And it was because of how he played the game, more than anything else. I think that given his athleticism, his
Mm,
talent, I think he could have played in basically any era. I think when people look at his like shot chart stuff and you get at all the analytics stuff about his twos and stuff, like, yeah, he shot a lot of twos, but he was really effective. Like even analytics
yeah.
guys are like, no, Michael Jordan shooting a long two is actually a pretty good shot.
Mm. Well, the
And
thing that caught me with the first two was, when they talk about him being drafted and they're talking to other players in the league and they're all kind of, 7 foot plus and they're talking about like it's a big man's league and he's not big enough and it's not, he's not going to be able to have that much of an impact in the way that other people, those really tall, they said that is it Bowie that got picked before him? Like the people they're looking for those tall centers to be able to go, yep, like this is what we want to build around, and then to actually be able to go, you know what, I'm not just going to be effective late in my career. I'm going to go kind of year one and go bang, off we go.
right.
It was pretty impressive considering kind of everyone's perceptions around the league and how it was kind of heading.
Yeah, I mean, the NBA has always been, and is finally starting to get out of it the last few years. But the easiest way to be a millionaire in the '90s was to be 6'10" or taller and be able to walk and chew bubblegum, because you could get a big contract in the NBA because it was all about how tall you are. Because the really simple understanding of the way the game used to be played was like, oh, if you're taller, it's easier, and we need some tall guys to make it harder on everybody else. And you get all these like really bizarre decisions like that. But I mean, Jordan for me, what I like the most about it is watching him and remembering kind of his attitude and his work ethic. And the difference for me between him and Kobe Bryant is both of them were described as mean. But when people talk about how mean Michael Jordan was, like, man, he was a real dick, but it was all about us winning. He never asked us to do anything that he didn't do or anything that he wouldn't do. Whereas Kobe was like, yeah, he's just kind of a dick. Like he worked real hard too and stuff, but like it's funny that Michael Jordan, there's this bigger understanding or vision about it that
Mm.
people seem to have, and it's fun for me to go through and remember that stuff, and that's to me why he's the greatest player. It's that attitude, that effect, that impact he had, that he really kind of chewed people up and spit them out. That as you start to look at the season that they're following and they're starting to get into it, I mean, it was him, man. He was dragging them
Mm.
kind of around like that entire season. Everybody's kind of hurt and they don't know what to do with no Scotty and stuff. And that's and LeBron, you start to think about him. He's obviously faced a ton of adversity, and you start to compare the errors. I mean, was LeBron's NBA tougher than Jordan's? There's a good case to be made for that the NBA now is deeper and there's a lot more talent. And I mean, the only guy in the NBA probably at that time that could have guarded Michael Jordan was the second best player on Michael Jordan's team.
Yeah.
But all of it's a lot of fun, and like you said, it's great to watch it all and go back and think about it and process it, and just to see some of that stuff. It's wild. I mean, some of the footage they have.
Yeah, and they've held on to it for this long and actually now pulled the trigger on it. It's the other thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, we both come from a tennis background, and there's no tennis on at the moment outside of the Russian something or other friendship league, which I see some people betting into, and good luck.
Well, there's soccer in Belarus. I've been seeing people bet on that. Nicaraguan soccer, Tajikistan soccer, Taiwanese soccer,
and I guess it's
table tennis. A lot of
Yes.
table tennis and darts experts.
Yeah. The other thing, I guess, is this is the first time we've been back online since we delivered 2 bandy winners. I think we did on this stream. So we're 2-0.
Lifetime. 200% ROI, bitches.
And at the moment, it's trying to figure out whether we continue on with bandy or whether we just cut the cord there and go, you know what, we had a good run, but I think we might end up going undefeated through bandy because I'm not
well, it helps
sure
that there doesn't seem to be any more bandy.
Yeah, it's making it very easy for us at the moment. But have you been following any of kind of the news and bits and pieces that's going on in the tennis world over the last kind of 4-6 weeks?
Little bits here and there. I think maybe the most interesting thing, if you want to talk about it, is Roger Federer's tweet around kind of a unified tennis organization.
Yeah.
I think that everything else has kind of been noise. There's been some exhibition, but I think that's been the most interesting piece. And I like the idea. I think that as you look in the history of kind of great sports leagues, it's about coming together as one. And I mean, anybody that's ever gone to business school, a monopoly is a really great place to be. And I think that if they were to be able to find some way to get everyone together and balance things, that, if we could get a unified tennis organization, we can have a unified media approach. We'll have the ability to watch tennis on one platform, hopefully, instead of 3 different platforms and things like that. So what did you think of that and that idea?
Look, I love Roger Federer and I love what he's done for the game, but this really feels like, when you do a group assignment and there's a number of people who do like 99.99% of the work, and then someone comes in at the end and submits it under their name or takes all the glory. I feel like that's what Federer's done here, because it looks like that was all going on in the background anyway. And now Federer and Nadal have just kind of jumped over the top and gone, hey, what a cool idea, when it's already been talked about.
Right.
And you could kind of tell that a bit from, was it Pospisil's tweets about it in response, that they should have already been aware that this was kind of brewing in the background. So I don't know. I think it needs Federer and it needs Nadal. It needs the big names to kind of push it. But I think we talked about it. I mean, what has it been? 3 months since we were talking kind of during the Australian Open about it. That if there's ever a time, I think that the ATP would consider going down this path, it's going to be now, because they're about to lose their, 2 of their big 3, you would imagine, in the next couple of years. And the WTA is becoming so versatile at the top, and there's top players from basically every pocket of the world. If there's ever a time to kind of merge it and try and capitalize, because I do worry a little bit for the ATP side, that once those big names go, if no one steps up, then it's not going to be as marketable as it is now. When you look at what a couple of those, or if you look just purely off kind of Instagram and things that have been reported recently, if you look at Federer, you look at Nadal, you look at Andy Murray, between the 3 of them, they're not going to be around for much longer. So look, it's going to be interesting to see how it all kind of unfolds. But I guess it's. I wonder if things started to be set in motion in Australia with the whole issue with the smoke and the bushfires, and then we kind of that started a conversation, and now it's like, well, we've got all this time to kind of talk about it. How about we like actually go through the details and get something done?
Yeah, it just makes too much sense to me to put all that power together again. The more unified you have, it's excuse me, the players have more control over what's going on. I think you have better organization. I think maybe the biggest obstacle, frankly, is the slams. The fact that those are independent organizations of each other, and I'm sure somebody owns them, and you probably have to buy them or something. And there's probably some big pain in the ass thing that needs to happen there. But at the very least, there should be more thoughtful scheduling around when they're together, when they're apart, where they are. It's interesting what you said about maybe it being good for the ATP, to have the WTA to kind of balance it out once the big players move out. Do you think that, once kind of Federer moves on, once Nadal moves on, and I know that we have a little more even after that, but after Djokovic moves on, what do you think is better for the ATP? Do you think it's better if there are another 2-3 guys that are dominant, or if it becomes more like the WTA is, where there's 5 to 10 players, that really could be great on any particular week?
I think they'd want balance, but the balance there needs to be personalities within the balance. Like you can see why they're being so careful with like Nick Kyrgios. Like they would love him to be top 10, and because he is so marketable in a lot of areas to a lot of people, and you just see that through just people bums on seats at his matches. I think they want to balance to an extent. It's hard, like you look at the last couple of Grand Slams, and you go through like a couple of quarterfinals and semifinals and whatnot, and you think back to, what was it, 2014? Was it Cilic and Nishikori played the US Open final?
Yeah,
and everyone was pissed off. Like everyone was annoyed. It's like, oh, like there's none of the top names. So like you can't have it both ways. Like if you want predictability and you want the top players to just play each other at the end, then you've enjoyed the last 10 years. But I think it's probably time now to take a step in another direction and go, look, if you could get, like, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts off the top of your head. And this is an ATP question. You could do WTA as well. I'd love to get like a whole bunch of people together and just write like, what do you think your top 10 will be at the end of the 2024 season?
Yeah, if I have the rankings pulled up, because you're right. I mean, who's that next marketable star? I think for a lot of people, they thought it was going to be Alexander Zverev, but he hasn't really lived up to it. I think Medvedev is probably the next guy. I think that Thiem. I wonder if, let me see, how old? Do you know how old Thiem is?
He's late 20s.
That's what I mean. Okay, he's 26. That's good. I thought he was like 28, 29. So I think he still has maybe a 4 or 5 year period after those guys kind of phase out where he gets a chance to be dominant. But 2024, right? So we're going 4 down. I think in the top 10 from the men's side, I think Thiem is probably in there. I bet Djokovic is still in the top 10 in 4 years, right?
You'd think so. It's just probably then figuring out that it's those other names like
Medvedev, I think, is in there. Medvedev. So like the guys that I'm like, so would be borderline on, Tsitsipas and Zverev. I actually like Tsitsipas's game, but I wonder if he's just a little too funky to be consistent. Berrettini, he's 8th in the world right now. I actually don't know if he holds on to that spot or falls back a little bit. And then you get to guys like Rublev. I mean, the Russian guys, that's really where it's strong. Your Rublev, your Khachev, your Medvedev.
And
Shapovalov,
I guess also
the Canadian guys. Like you start to look at the Canadian guys, right? You got Shapovalov and FAA. I actually think FAA will probably be a top 10 player in 4 years. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I even think maybe sooner if he can get a full season together and have that confidence in his serve. I think he was one of those ones that looked like it was maybe starting to click in patches at the start of the year. And maybe didn't benefit as much from this break as perhaps some other players. Rublev is probably another one that if he plays enough and stays fit, De Minaur, I don't think Kyrgios will ever play enough to be.
What about a guy like Casper Ruud?
Yeah,
Is there
yeah.
going to be enough points for him on clay?
I think he's got enough in his game to be able to kind of. So I think, is he the one that he generates the most forehand and backhand topspin of any player by like a
Yeah,
very
he
long
hammers
way?
the ball.
So
The ball.
so it should be able to translate potentially to other servers. I mean, I don't think he's ever going to be great on grass, but grass is never a long enough season to have an impact for anyone anyway.
Right. If he
So-
can dominate clay and win enough hard and do well enough in the big hardcore tournaments, like that's
Yeah.
an easy top 10.
So look, I think there's, and you know what, I might even put it out there to a number of people if they want to challenge themselves with even, what's your top 10 at the end of next year? Like if things are going to be jumbled around a little bit. The women's one's probably even more interesting too.
Yeah, I think next year the top 10 for the men looks pretty much the same. Let me just look at the women's real quick. I'm trying to think. I mean, it's just amazing. And you got to think, kind of whose body's going to hold up. I mean, is Simona Halep going to be able to still play full seasons of tennis in 4 years with her back? I think Ashley Barty has, a long career ahead of her. I think she's still top 10, obviously, in the next 4 years. Somebody like Pliskova, I wonder how long of a career she's going to have if she doesn't start to win big tournaments the next couple of years. Does she just kind of burn out? Cannon will be top 10. Andreescu will be top 10. Bencic, if her body can hold up. Osaka. And then you start to get to like Sabalenka probably. Who else are we looking at? And you start to get further out. Like, could Rybakina be top 10? I think that's a chance. Vondrousova, if she ever finds her form.
I think Rybakina, that was bound to happen until this pause.
Yeah.
If you just look at the pure amount of points that she generated through that first part of the year.
That's true. She's already up to 17, and we haven't the entire rest of the season left.
And she'd have next to nothing to defend. Like, she's still defending, I think, technically. Like, she was winning WTA tournaments, and then they were replacing her points from like ITF matches 12 months earlier.
Yeah, I mean, it's WTA, and that's why it's so fun to start to look like somebody like Yastremska. She's 25th right now. She's going to be top 10. Mahova's 26. Alexandrova's 27. Anna Samova's 28. I mean, look at that little 4-pack right there. I would be surprised if any of those 4 names were top 5, let alone top 10.
Yeah. And I think that's when you think back through all these periods of, even say over the last 5 years, you look at the players like Halep and Wozniacki, and those players that have a very consistent brand that kind of translates from season to season and week to week. Whereas you look at like a Muguruza, who's like, I know I'm going to be average some weeks, but like she just wants to be able to peak in the right parts of the tour. But you see those players like Halep and Wozniacki, because they can just turn up and produce a pretty consistent level, that they're going to be higher in those rankings for longer. Like you look at like Sabalenka, and you look at these players who can wipe anyone off the court on their day, but they're just not pushing those top names. So yeah. It's a style thing too.
Right. Pliskova for me is the perfect example of that. Like, she just week in, week out is making quarterfinals and semifinals and just getting crushed in big events.
Yeah, and then she's number 3. She does well until she finds a competent returner who has a good day. Really.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to get too many positive things from me about Pliskova, but I think everyone knows that over a long period of time.
A lot of nights, I'll say. I love fading her. She's one of my favorite fades. It's like you said, you get a returner that, she just comes out and she's not on that day, and the returner is having a good day. It's over.
Yep.
It's a shame to watch somebody with so many big weapons like that not be able to put it together. Anyway, is there any other tennis news we had to cover? I think it was just the merger talk. Did I miss anything else?
I think it was just the merger talk, and I guess the other question is, at what point can, and this is probably a question you can't answer, and I'd be interested to see who could, but at what point is it considered acceptable to start the ranking points and like starting tournaments again and have it fair? So like if Europe starts, or like Roland Garros goes, you know what, we're having the French Open in God knows when, in October or wherever they change it to for the 48th time, and American players can't leave the country, Australian players can't leave the country. Is it fair then to have the tour kick off when not everyone is able to generate points and attend tournaments?
I guess I'll answer that question, but my initial reaction is I don't think that they're going to have tennis tournaments unless you can get most, if not all, the big players to be there. But if they were to do something like that, I've always been of the mindset that whenever it starts, the way you do points are, there's a certain amount of events, and you don't lose points in that event until it's played again, or it's been canceled or replaced, or something like that. Like, Bianca Andreescu won. I think it was Indian Wells, right? She should get to keep those Indian Wells points until they play Indian Wells again. Like I see no reason that those should be taken away or anything like that. Conversely, Barty's French Open points, there's no reason for her to lose those until they play the French Open again, and that's always kind of been my feeling about it. Because when this does start, I think it's going to be slow. I think it's going to be clunky. I think the idea of like a fresh 52 weeks and stuff isn't going to make a lot of sense for a while. So, I've always thought of it as this is the calendar. The calendar is this many events, and as long as that event is still relevant, you shouldn't lose the points until the event's played again.
Yeah. Look, if they thought that dealing with that whole ITF ranking points change thing was a disaster, this is going to be bigger again.
This is going to be messy. There's going to be a lot of people that'll be upset no matter what they decide.
Yeah. And look, at least if there is a positive to come from it, it might be that whole ranking points changes thing prize money changes, I guess, to try and level it out a little bit more might be a good thing. I mean, when you think about it, if you're going to win $6 or $7 million to win a Grand Slam, so what's the valuable bit there? Is it the $7 million or the $7 million instead of $4 million, or is it the 2,000 ranking points you get? Like, why should you get? Like, it's.
I guess it's a balance of each, because ranking points gain you access to tournaments.
Yeah.
Keep you from having to qualify and do stuff like that. If your ranking points are high enough, you just get a check for showing up because you've already won your first round match thanks to a buy from time to time. So I think it is a combination of both. And that's actually one of the reasons I think that doing the merger between the two is going to be better. I think they'll generate more money, and then we'll get to stop having conversations like balancing this stuff out.
Yeah. And the thing I'm looking forward to probably about all of that is that I'm looking forward to the day a Grand Slam comes out and goes, hey, like, we don't have record prize money for the top players. Like, we've actually got a really, like, here is our balanced prize money. And if you don't want to attend, then don't attend. But if you can't, I'll just have a look while we're talking about this. It looks like we've got our friend Gav who's come to say hello.
Indeed, he has.
Welcome, Gav. Nice for you to be along. Gav is a nighttime reality TV show degenerate. So this is the first time that we've been able to catch him, because it's just after midday on a Sunday. So hello, Gav.
He also has two very little children, which is just exhausting.
That is also true. And if there was one thing that I've come back to from the last 5-6 weeks, is that yes, I have been isolating by myself, but silence is probably better. It's much easier to create noise than to dull it.
Ain't that the truth?
It does seem interesting. Like, it doesn't feel like this time 3 months ago we were on the first Sunday or the end of the first week of the Australian Open.
It's wild. It's wild to think about how quickly it changed, and how long it's been. It's coming up. It'll be about 6. We finished 6 weeks, almost 7 weeks now of nothing since that last NBA game was canceled. All that stuff. The NBA game, I think, is the last major event that I can remember thinking actually was going to happen. Because it was like, they're going to play NBA tonight, and it's like, oh, they're not.
Nope.
There's not any tomorrow. Oh shit.
Because we had a round or two of kind of our local sport here, but it was played with no crowd, so it wasn't quite like, if you go back and watch it now, it just looks weird. But then at the time you're like, crap, I'll take anything. Like, give me anything live. Just because I don't want to, I want to watch something that I don't know the outcome of. It's like that feeling that comes with that. But then at the same time, you know,
it's just
things
something
feel
to
a lot
watch.
different.
It's that feeling. It's
Yeah.
the going back and forth, and that was actually the interesting part when this first started, was watching everybody go, "Oh, there's no NBA. There's not going to be any baseball. There's no hockey. Oh, let's get into Australian rules football. Oh, let's
just
bet
disclaimer,
on Russian bandy."
Just a disclaimer, I had a very good first weekend of Australian rules football.
Oh, did you?
And the fact that I have not been able to follow that up with 5 weeks of crushing losses has been fantastic for me.
It's always silver linings.
So, Gav's question, in the first couple of weeks after live sport was cancelled, did you guys watch any sport?
No, I didn't. I'm not a big rewatch guy.
Yeah.
And even, like, frankly, I probably don't watch as much sports as a lot of people that do what we do watch. I mean, to be perfectly honest, like, I go to bed most nights at like 10:30, which I live on the East Coast. I don't see a lot of West Coast basketball. There's not a lot of Sacramento Kings games or Warriors games or Phoenix Suns games that are seen in my house. So, no, I didn't. I didn't go back and try to watch old stuff or, try to find like other weird sports and little stuff to watch. Yeah, I just kind of pulled the Band-Aid off. How about you?
Yeah, I didn't watch a lot after that. I watched that first weekend of the AFL quite a lot because I kind of knew it was going to be the last kind of live sport that was going to be around. But then, yeah, after that was cancelled, I haven't watched a lot at all, really. So, like, I've gone back to, this year as a pure, thinking back to like 5 years ago, if I thought I'd ever go back to study again, I thought there'd be more chance of there being a pandemic than me going back to study. And I ended up going back to study and starting 3 days before the pandemic was announced. It's been
So it's your fault.
So I've gone from working, middle of last year, working full time in a hospital, to now all my work is at home. I worked yesterday in the hospital, and it was amazing to be considered essential for a small period of time. But yeah, now it's been from like permanently out, and then, when you do that, and when you're in a position, so like when I'm at work, there's no capacity to do like watch tennis or to do anything really in that regard when in a general life. So then that's playing catch up afterwards. To now having time has been refreshing in a weird way that I probably didn't expect. Like it's a lot's changed for me in a year. But then you always have those things. So like when you're working until like 2 or 3 a.m. to do previews to then send out and whatever is involved with that, you then sit there in your head, you go, oh gee, like I'd love to do this if I had time.
Right.
And then then you have the time, and then it's like, well, now I'm actually going to test myself. Is like, am I actually going to do this, or is this just like my way of making myself feel better at the time of what was going on? But like, I don't.
Right.
I think it's kind of, in a weird way, it's the current setup has kind of worked well for me in a way, to kind of get reset with a lot of things. Haven't watched sport, but just kind of trying to it's almost like a life reset in a way. I don't know if Darius is still there. So Darius is actually a personal trainer. So he sent me through a workout that he tells me to do and is very mean about. So if I don't know if he's still there, Wang_Bang88. I've tried to kind of step away from sport a bit because I know that as soon as it starts up again, I'm going to be back into it fairly heavily in some capacity. And yes, sorry, Darius, I've kind of outed you there.
You've outed you did. That was mean.
Yeah, well, Sometimes you need to be mean to the two people that are watching, which is probably Gavin and Darius.
Hey, there's three. There's three in there.
Three.
Come on.
Sorry. Yeah. So like,
Yeah,
I haven't watched a lot of sport, but then it's trying to kind of get like it's just trying to get a bit more balance. So then when things start again, because I know when things start, they're going to kind of it's all going to once it begins again, there's going to be no stopping for quite a while. You would imagine.
Yeah, I've done a lot of process improvement kind of stuff, go through, clean stuff up, find faster, better ways to pull data. I've been starting to look at maybe some of the programs and stuff to use and doing some more research and stuff like that. But yeah, it's different. It's wild to have all this time that we used to spend thinking about specific things and finding other stuff to do with it. And, we've joked around it. Like, I'm reading books. I don't read books. And God, even when I was in school, I didn't read books. But I've read a couple. I've learned some things. It's terrifying. Just before I started, go ahead.
Do you have a book recommendation?
I'm looking at my pile right now. I finished Nudge. Nudge is fantastic. It's this book, kind of where two economists talk about the concept of being a choice architect. A choice architect being somebody that, whether intentionally or unintentionally, has control over decisions that are made. The easiest example would be, whoever decides what order names go in a ballot. By just organizing names that way, they have an impact on how decisions are made. So that was really interesting. I'm just about done a book called Then One Day, ... 40 years or something of bookmaking in Vegas by Chris Andrews. It's just a really good book of like a lot of stories about, kind of old Vegas and bookmaking and things like that. That's really a lot of fun. Read a good book about Omaha if you want to learn how to play Omaha poker. That's pretty good. And then the next thing I'm going to read is a book called Anti-Fragile by a guy, Nicholas Nassim Taleb. I forget which order it goes in, but he's one of the kind of leading experts on probability and the mathematics behind all that and kind of what impact that has on making decisions. And this book's called Anti-Fragile, Things that Gain from Disorder. So interested to get into some of that stuff. So a lot of good stuff there. So what have you been doing that's new and different to fill your time besides studying to become Dr. Ace?
Well, that's the thing. That's taken up a lot of time. So that's technically a full-time job. So I'm studying full-time. And then outside of that, it's not a lot. It's just kind of mixtures of bits and pieces. It's like trying to kind of keep in touch with people that like I used to work with, or like just trying, like you get to that point of like trying to keep in touch with people, and then some people you probably reconnect with more when it's kind of just virtual or over the internet in some capacity. I think I have a Zoom account, so that's that's kind of kept me in the loop a bit, which has been good when it's kind of you just living by yourself. I think that's look, the study has been a lot, and then trying to kind of just get a balance with everything. I think that's probably the thing that happens a lot because my tennis work has always been kind of it's been additional on top of, like, I always wanted when I started things up to make sure that I never was reliant on what I was doing tennis wise. So now it's trying to think like, well, that's a way. What can I do to maybe make it better? What can I do when things return? How will things change? It's going to be I think that the fact that you don't know how long this will go on for has its pros and cons, but trying to get myself into a position where I get to the end of the lockdown and things open up again, and I feel like I'm in a better position than I was when everything kind of stopped. And I think that was probably the big thing. Like for me, January was huge. Like I think I was at like 22 days of tennis or something, live tennis, like on site. Because I went to Brisbane and then did qualifying and then did the main draw. And I went to like 11 of the 14 days of the main draw of the Australian Open. So like that was massive, and then I don't think I was still completely recovered from that. And then all of a sudden you whipped into doing other work, and all of a sudden your tennis stuff is all happening, middle of the night, or odds don't come out till a particular time. So I don't think I'd quite come down or stopped from January in a way until like it's kind of a forced stoppage. So yeah, it's been an eye-opening couple of weeks. But yeah, the weeks kind of all blend together, and weekends don't quite feel like weekends. So I do a little bit of work every second weekend back where I used to work full time. So that's good and keeps my kind of foot in the door and lets me go out. And so I don't know. So over here we get a free small coffee from McDonald's if we're a healthcare worker. So that's a bonus. And half price Nando's. I don't know what else there was. There's something. There's a few things. It's nice to be considered essential in a way.
It is. I'm certainly not essential. I do finance work, so I've been sitting at home doing some consulting and stuff, working from home. Yeah, it's a lot of it's getting used to being at home, which is something that actually I'd done anyway about a month or two before all this started. I made the choice to leave kind of my office job and be at home, working from home, doing consulting and stuff like that anyway. So, the other part of it was doing more work on sports like we've been doing. So that part of the plan kind of fell apart, but I had been ready to do some stuff like this. But it's been good to stretch out a little bit, take a break, like you said, try to refocus on some other things, and it's good. It's worked out perfectly for you, kind of like you said. What a great break time to be able to get into your PhD.
Yeah, so it's that's going to be me for the next. And that's the thing. It's the first couple of months is just getting things set up and kind of getting into a rhythm of it. But it is less. It's less time than what I was doing previously. So it's allowed me to kind of jump on it and get ahead a little bit. So then when tennis is back, that I have that balance again and can work on it. Because I think it's good to have that balance in a way. Because I think if you're spending your whole time covering it, then it becomes a bit all-consuming.
Right.
But yeah, I think it's trying to, and I think this kind of period helps kind of find that balance a little bit of where things are at and how it's all panning out.
So what have you been doing? Have you been betting on anything, or you've been scratching the itch, or you've been a good boy?
Nothing.
Nothing?
No.
No? You playing online poker or something stupid like that?
No.
Ugh.
So like horse racing's still going on here, and I haven't.
Thank God I've stayed away from that. I am a terrible horse bettor. But damn, is it fun?
the first round of the AFL. So like if I had to pick my second sport in terms of covering, it would be AFL. I don't know. I used to be more so into horse racing, and that was just kind of through who I was friends with at the time and kind of connections and how that all kind of panned out. Like I can't sit at home on a couch and like throw $10 on a horse. But like if I went to the horse, like if I was live at the track,
yeah, that's the best. There's nothing better than being on the track. Yeah.
Yeah. But I can't just sit there and go like, and I think that's the thing, like when you're there at the track, like it's every 45 minutes or 50 minutes or whatever it is. And it's kind of, you're there, you're kind of enjoying it. It's a whole experience. Whereas when you're watching on TV, you're like, and 3 minutes later, there's another race from like the middle of nowhere. And you're like, like you have to weed through a lot of crap to get kind of the bits that you want. So like I'll flick back and forth if I know, like I follow enough racing people on Twitter to kind of know when races are about to start. So like I'll flick back and forth, but I haven't bet on anything really. No, I don't. No. So there was. It came out today. Was it today or yesterday that since the lockdown, Australians have saved $1 billion on poker machines. So they're doing all these interviews with people, and they're saying it's like my prayers have been answered. Like they've got all this extra money, these people, because you go from like the situation that you're in. Like you can't go to a sporting match without seeing like Bet365 or all your local things everywhere. Like it's plastered everywhere, and this has like been for some people. Well, you don't know until you get to the other side, but it's like that kind of cold turkey, rip the Band-Aid off, and like
look at all this money.
Yeah, and there's people who will go like, oh, hang on, I've got this money that like, this money that I'm not used to having every fortnight or month or whatever it is that's coming in. But yeah, I'd be interested to see like how everything rebounds afterwards. Because I think there will be some people who go, you know what, it's just not like it's not worth it, but they just haven't had that moment to go. Like, there's different reasons and there's different levels to it. But yeah, I think it'd be interesting.
I think people be hesitant at first just because it'll be hard to understand kind of what's going on. Like, I know personally, I'm a big NBA bettor. Whenever the NBA comes back in whatever form it comes back in, like, I'm not betting any sort of regular season games if they have any. If it goes right
Yeah.
to playoffs, even then, I'm going to wait a round or two maybe just to start doing anything. It's going to be tough, but I think there'll be so many people that'll have been going nuts not having anything. I think the NFL season is going to be huge. I think they'll probably be the biggest NFL handle that's ever been by a significant margin as a result of some of that stuff. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it all comes back. I assume that it will, of course. I mean, even people that realize kind of how much money they've saved and so on and so forth will go back to it eventually, I think. And again, it just continues to expand anyway. So not worried about it.
Well, that's the thing. So question for you, say the first tournament back for the tennis was just say it was like Washington or something, and the plan was the US Open was going ahead, which I don't think it will, but that's just for this situation. Would you bet that week?
I'd look, but I'd be really hesitant. I think it would be a lot like the way that I try to approach the first couple weeks of the tennis season. I'd spend, frankly, more work than I'd like to admit going through people's social media, trying to figure out who's been working out, who's in shape, who's not in shape, and just trying to focus on stuff like that. But yeah, I am. Whenever Steph comes back, I think, regardless of what sport it is, I'm going to be hesitant for a while to see how everybody looks.
Yep. And I think from just a pure social media perspective, you're probably going to see the people who need the revenue that comes from kind of spruiking yourself on social media and who is perhaps a little bit more grounded and aware. Because I guess, thinking about this tennis stuff, like, we talk about how difficult it is to see how people go coming off 1 month of an off season, let alone kind of a forced, let's say by the end of it, 6 months of isolation, and most people are isolated at a point where they can't get to a tennis court. It will be interesting to see how things come back, because a lot of people might be really fit, but the tennis isn't quite there.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's going to take time for people to get back into stuff, because you're right. They haven't been, with tennis players. I mean, I wonder if I thought I heard, isn't Benoit Paire like shacked up with somebody else and they're playing tennis? I imagine like Monfils and Svitolina, they're probably together doing stuff. I mean, you've seen all the creative videos of people. It was the Italians playing tennis on their roofs or whatever. So
I just need tennis to come back so Svitolina can get off TikTok.
Now you're not enjoying that? It doesn't do it for you?
No. That's a no from me.
I agree with that. There's something about her that I don't know. Not doing it for me.
I think it's like, this is going back like, I reckon it must be like 6 years, 7 years. She tweeted once of something like, oh, I remember growing up and how, I used to think that like $20 was like a lot of money, or like 20 cents was like really important. It's like, and now I have all this money, and like, it was just like a really like insensitive tweet that just stuck with me. And I'm like, you just don't quite get it. Like you take tennis away and you look and you're like, what are you doing now? You're doing TikTok for your brand. And that's the thing, like with a lot of players now, it's like half of them are going, they're using, they're playing tennis and putting everything into tennis, and half are going, well, I need to kind of build my social media following so I can advertise things for the next 20 years and go, here's my new, bleach that's going to help with, killing the coronavirus that can be injected wherever you want.
That's why I try to stay away from that stuff. I've done a pretty good job of that. I haven't seen too many videos and stuff. Because this point, you're right. I don't really care what they're doing because they're not doing. They're at home. They're doing their thing. But like you said, to circle back to your original question, I mean, whenever this stuff comes back, there's going to be a lot of hesitancy. That's for sure.
Yep. And I guess it's that weighing up that, hesitancy versus backing yourself if you feel like you know a player or you know a situation quite well, that our lines going to be off? But then it's going to be that kind of test of, what do you see as, is it off, or is it that we're all off, or
does somebody know something?
Yeah.
It's always the question: does somebody on the inside know some sort of physical thing? And we'll talk about it, of course, when that stuff comes back. I mean, there's a lot of strategic decisions to make. Like, is it smart to fade people that more rely on their physical gifts as opposed to their mental gifts? Does it make sense to, like you said, like I was talking about, going through social media and looking at everybody and seeing who's been playing tennis and who's been sitting at home playing video games like Nadal.
Yep. It's all going to be. Nadal's just going to. Although, it's good for his knees.
I got to think it could definitely, and we were talking about this before the show. For those of you that don't know, Rafael Nadal is not playing tennis or training. He's just kind of hanging out. I wonder if it's good. He gets a few months off, gets his knees healthy and stuff to just add another French Open or two.
I mean, he could come back and say, I'm never playing hardcourt again.
I don't know why he hasn't, frankly.
Yeah.
God bless his pride.
Yeah. I don't want to be looking at his knee x-rays in about 10 years. I mean, I don't want to be looking at them now, but I don't think it's going to get any better for him.
No. And the French Open will come up with some sort of algorithm where he's the 1 seed forever anyway.
Yeah. And he'll play on a court probably named after him somehow. It'll all work out quite well.
All right, Stephen. Anything else?
I don't think so. I think most of the comments have come through from Gav and I'm not going to say his name again, Wang_bang88. So I'm going to come up with a prize for them.
I think that's a good idea.
I'll let them know. I'll get them to split a prize. I'll let me think about that, and I'll pop that up on Twitter. The other thing I need to
they're both from Australia, so we shouldn't send them something Australian. I'll look around my house and see if there's something United Statesian or Philadelphian around here that I no longer care for.
Yeah, well,
maybe I've got an Allen Iverson bobblehead upstairs. Maybe you guys can share that.
Oh yeah, see, Allen Iverson here is now randomly on our PointsBet ads, so he must be really short on cash.
Oh yeah, no, he spent every single dollar he's ever made, except his mom was super smart. His mom took a bunch of money that he got from Reebok early on and hid it in a trust that he can't get to until he's 60 or 65 or something. But he's already been divorced twice, so I think he's already spent 2/3 of that on alimony.
Yeah, good. So that's the thing. That was the other thing. Just before we finish, was that CJ McCollum? He said it was a third of the NBA players are living paycheck to paycheck.
It's wild, man.
You just. And I can kind of understand it with if you got you want to get your parents a house and you want to it's where do you draw the line with those kind of things, but also not great. There is going to come a time where you retire or you don't have a contract anymore, and then what happens? Anyway.
Yeah. But we'll see.
That's my story. So I'll come up with a prize for those two, and the other poll I need to put up is it LA Chargers versus LA Chargers versus Buffalo Bills. Should I put an other section or not?
I think maybe we do some sort of other choices put in the replies and see if people want to have some suggestions.
Because there's a part of me that was considering before kind of this conversation was because I go for the Miami Heat, whether I just go for the Dolphins. But
you just be a Miami guy.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. They have cool jerseys. They tanked last year, had a big draft. Now it's probably a good time to get on the Dolphins. You're not going to be bandwagon because they're still not very good. They don't have a quarterback yet, but
at least they're going to be.
That wouldn't be the worst choice.
At least they're going to be better than the Packers, isn't that right, Gav?
Oh, that was mean.
He did miss the start of the conversation where we talked quite heavily about.
Well, he left
how
already
average-
anyway. His 5-year-old was whining about something.
Yeah. No, he's back. There he is.
Oh, there he is.
Alrighty, we might wrap it up there. I'll get those prizes out. I'll send out that poll, and we should do this again sometime.
We will. We'll try to be a little better about this. It was fun just to check in, and maybe we'll have a format next time. What the hell?
Yeah, maybe. Where's the what are the rest of your net worth gang up to? Do we need to get Spread and Jorge
It's
or
tough.
anyone on?
Spread's become like a professional poker player. I know he's still doing some little shows here and there, but he'll probably just be sitting going like this, fold hands over and over again the whole time. And Jorge might have gone insane. All he's doing is tweeting out like lyrics to songs and
lyrics.
stuff.
Yeah.
So hopefully he's okay. We should reach out to him.
I really do miss Spread's green screen. Sorry, the green wall. See, I haven't painted it yet. I need to get onto that.
You got time.
Zoom virtual backgrounds have been working well.
And
normally
we should try Zoom next time.
We'll do a Zoom. We'll figure out a time. We'll get them on, and we can just open it up to if anyone wants to jump on. Now, I did learn not to put a Zoom link public on Twitter, because you get spammed with like 400 different bots with like pornography and just random like links and voices and screaming, and so there's obviously bots out there that link into that. So if we do that, we need to not put the link onto Twitter, but we need to get people to to send a DM.
There's got to be like a watch or something. I don't know. Yeah, we'll figure it out. I'm not too worried.
When I did a Zoom with a couple of people on Twitter the other week, I made that mistake, and it was an assault to the senses, both to my ears and to my eyes.
So it wasn't like fun porn. It was like weird, gross stuff.
It was just like 400 different things with screaming, all on top of each other, and I already had the volume up, and just the look of sheer panic on my face as I was trying to like end the meeting, but make sure that like I ended the meeting for everyone and not like just left it to the other like 3 people that had joined on. It's good fun, but we'll figure that out. We'll find a time where Gav's got a bit of time, and he can talk about the Packers and drown his sorrows. But we'll certainly set something up in the near future. We'll get in touch with Spread and Jorge if they're alive.
There, I think we'll figure it out. All right, good job, and thank you, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in, either live or later on the replay. I know that a lot of people jump in.
Go see the sun. It's still out there, I promise.
Just go out by yourself. Don't go out with lots of other people.
Hey, wear a mask.
Yeah.
Wear a mask.
And lucky, just before the bands came in, I actually bought a 5-liter bottle of bleach, so I'm set. So we will talk to you next time. I'll let you know how the bleach goes, and we can.
That's good. Let me know. You can maybe send some to me.
Where do I inject it? Do I inject into my arm or my eye or somewhere else?
Just any orifice, really. Just pick one. Maybe like rinse it in your mouth, a little in one ear, a little in the other ear.
Yeah, good. Okay, I'll keep you posted.
Right,
disclaimer.
Video.
Disclaimer. Don't do that.
Yeah, don't. Do not.
We will talk to you
bleach,
soon.
Please. Please do not.
Please do not. We could not be stronger on that. Please do not listen to that. We will talk to you next time.
Indeed. Au revoir.